Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Chris Wood. I'm an API specialist, or the API specialist, should I say. There's only one of me, with Visa Europe Collab. And today I'm going to give you a little walkthrough of what we're trying to achieve with our what we're calling our API playground. So I have to show you this. And just to make sure everybody's at the right session, I'll put the abstract up. So what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about Visa Europe Collab, what it's all about, why it exists, give you an idea of some of the things we're up to, and then tell you about this playground thing that we're trying to create. So, a brief history of Visa Europe Collab. So, Visa Europe Collab was created earlier this year. We've been around for about 6 months, and the reason we've been created is to give Visa Europe a place where we can investigate ideas, where we can get into investigating new ideas in payments without some of the restrictions and processes and procedures that exist inside Visa Europe. So we've spent the last couple of years in Visa Europe attempting to do digital transformation projects and attempting to do them in a way that reflects the manner our core systems are developed. So, of course, our core systems being our authorizations platform that forms part of VisaNet. So, what we found over the last couple of years is that we just, inside the organization, we just don't have the flexibility, the small A agility, the mechanisms and means in order to run quick, fail-fast projects. So Collab is Visa's answer to that. It takes the innovation process outside of the main part of the organisation and puts it somewhere completely separate, where we can start exploring all these great new ideas that are coming out of the fintech community in Europe. So we work with a variety of startups. There's a process that startups can approach us, or we go and look for startups that are interesting. We work with collaborators that may be existing players in the industry, and we basically work with anybody who's got an interesting idea in payments. And we use a maximum 100-day process where we execute proofs of concept, or it might be a proof of technology, what we call a proof of technology, where we're investigating some new technology that's interesting to us. Proof of concept investigates new ideas. We might form a point of view during that 100 days. 100 days has been described as our religion. Now, you know, every religion allows for a bit of moral flexibility, so it doesn't have to be 100 days, it can be less, it can be slightly more. But ultimately we're looking for speed and agility in the way that we operate. We've based ourselves in what we believe are the right places in Europe in order to get the most from the community around us. So we've got innovation hubs in London, in Shoreditch, just down the road from Tech City. We've got another outfit in Berlin and another one in Tel Aviv, all hotbeds of different types of innovation in fintech. So, and now we're 6 months down the lane, we're trying to create this thing, this API playground, as we're calling it, that's going to help our processes and help our 100-day process execute efficiently and get the most out of the community that we're working with. So before I go on and talk about the playground, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of some of what we've been doing, some of the key innovation themes. Now, we work on the basis of we're split into squads inside the organisation, and we take responsibility for various different aspects of the fintech scene. So one of the key interests we've got is in cryptocurrency. You know, I'll say that magic word, blockchain. Of course, we're interested in blockchain. We're in the financial services industry. Who isn't? So we've been experimenting with blockchain. We've recently completed a proof of concept with a company, Epithite, to do a remittances proof of concept, where Visa plays the role of the funds provider from a customer's bank account. So yeah, cryptocurrency is great interest to us. Authentication, you know, we're as a complement to the payments process. Of course, we're interested in authentication from the perspective of making it more frictionless, more easier for consumers to authenticate themselves to allow a payment to happen. So we recently partnered with WorldPay and a company called Stala to produce a technology called FingoPay. FingoPay is basically finger vein scanning. You pop your finger inside the reader, it scans your finger veins, which are unique to you, and Bob's your uncle, the payment is authorized. I'll pop these ones up together because I can't tell you too much about them because we don't have any public stuff at the moment, but of course we're investigating IoT, device-to-device payment, and alongside that we're looking at smart cities and what smart cities will look like. Some of this is actual proof of concept, some of this is forming points of view about what smart cities might look like in the future. And finally, and this isn't the end of the list, there are other themes, but this is just to give you a flavour. We're interested in wearables and how wearables may reduce friction in the payments process and make it easier for people to pay. And we recently did a collaboration with the House of Holland Fashion House. So oddly, Visa Europe was involved in London Fashion Week this year. These models, you can see they're each sporting a leaf, a plastic leaf. Now that plastic leaf is actually a virtualized payment terminal. So the idea was that consumers wait too long to get their hands on the latest fashions, and Henry Holland's idea was let's bring the purchase directly to the catwalk. So VIPs that were invited were each given an NFC ring which was associated with a payment card, and for the items that they saw on the models that they liked at the end of the show, they were able to walk up, bosh, touch the ring against the reader, a payment was made, an order was registered in our virtual POS, and that article was then ready for the VIP to pick up after the show. So it certainly isn't a proof of concept that's ready for the market, but in terms of trying these ideas out, it was a really successful way of showing how the payment experience could be redefined for a consumer, and that juxtaposition of payments and the catwalk, you know, that's never been seen or done before in the way that we did it. So it gives you an overall flavour of what we're about and how we're trying to operate, you know, breaking new boundaries in what could be seen as a stuffy payment experience. So that's enough background. What's this API playground thing? So for anybody who's worked in technology, you know what a sandbox is. A sandbox is an area where data and services are made available to people to experiment with and try out and what have you. So fundamentally, a playground is like a sandbox, but we're specifically using the term playground in order to try and elicit a spirit of experimentation with the developer community. You know, we want to offer up all these APIs in our playground environment so that people can come and see what we've got, and they can experiment and they can try out new ideas, and we can try new ideas with them and form new points of view based on having the tooling available to them in order to see what we can really offer. So I'll just run through, you know, some of the just wheres and why-fors of what we're doing in the playground. So we need the space to play. I've already said that working inside the main Visa Europe organisation doesn't deliver us the flexibility and agility we need in order to work effectively. So our playground is a dedicated space outside of the main Visa Europe data centers, and it's hosted in the cloud. There's a limited amount of restrictions around accessing the playground. Once services are up, they can be accessed from anywhere effectively. We don't put a VPN around the services we offer. We simply put other security mechanisms around it. So the intention is it's an open environment. It's away from a core system, so I've said this a couple of times already, so the playground is intentionally separate. What we're aiming to do is take some of the APIs that already exist inside the main Visa Europe organisation, virtualize them, and bring them over to the playground. So we're basically hosting separate copies of our core APIs in the playground. The playground also gives us a mechanism by which we can showcase what we're doing. So naturally, the ideas we come up with and the proofs of concept that we build, they go back to the main Visa Europe organisation. We don't just stop. We don't think, oh, that's great, and just stop there. They go back to Visa Europe for possible commercialisation. So we need an area where we can showcase proofs of concept, and the playground gives us this showcase in order to show off what we're doing back to the main Visa Europe organisation. As I've said already, we're trying to elicit this spirit of experimentation. So we want to make sure that people can come into the playground, access the APIs that are in there with not unfettered access. There is security, but they can access anything that we're hosting in the playground without need for additional authorization. Once they've signed up, we want them to have access to everything that's available. Sorry. And then, as I've said, this free reign to experiment. These are our APIs. This is what we're all about. Come and see what you can make of our APIs. See if you can come up with new ideas that we haven't even thought of. I mean, that's one of the key premise about APIs, is that way in which an API provider can offer an API, and consumers can use it in ways that are inconceivable to the organisation that originally produced them. Sorry, one moment. Okay, so that's the playground concept. We're intentionally calling it the playground in order to try and elicit this spirit of experimentation and make sure that we're inclusive, and we want people to come and access the playground in a way where they feel they're permitted to go and use our APIs. So who can play? That's an interesting question. So we're not going to operate a completely open developer program. So naturally, like any developer portal and sandbox offering, there's a terms of use and a legal framework that bounds how people can use this. But once you're in, once you qualify, and as I say, we're working on the framework of who can come and play. But once you're in and you abide by the rules, the terms of use, you can come and play with the APIs as you see fit. So yeah, come and play with all the equipment. You'll be given an API key for all the APIs that exist that's dedicated to you, and you can access any of those APIs. You can use the console in the developer portal in order to work with it interactively, or alternatively start hacking away at the API. You've got an API key, knock yourself out. So the equipment we're offering, is as I said before, we're virtualizing the APIs that we've got we've already got in Visa Europe. We're bringing them across into the playground in a virtualized form. They don't represent the real API. Well, they're representations of the real APIs, but they're not on live systems. and we've got what we call innovation assets. So these are things that we develop during the course of our activities that we think are valuable for reuse, and again help with this idea of experimentation and hopefully inspiration of the people that we work with. So just one example of that, for the Henry Holland House of Holland show, we created an API in order to hide away all the complexity of hitting a payments provider in the background, and we also changed the theatre lights every time a successful payment was made, and all that was put behind an API we created, and that's something that we offer in the API playground. The last thing about the playground is that we believe that we can offer these facilities, but unless we can give developers dedicated access to a virtualized instance of an API, then they don't really get what they want. So what we've done is create this concept of a play group. So the play group is you can go in the portal, you can learn about an API, you can use an interactive console which accesses a shared instance that anybody can access in the playground. But by a button click, you can provision a new instance of that API and create an API key which gives you dedicated access. So that's really important, because not only does it allow developers to work on their own isolated instances of our APIs for a given proof of concept, it's also self-service. So the management overhead from people like me who help these people out is decreased, and I can get on with doing good stuff. So we talked a lot about what the playground represents and how we'd like it to work and what we're trying to elicit from the developer community. But the core theme is, why is API management important? And I mean API management as a concept, as a topic, as opposed to CI API management. We'll come on to that in a minute. So it's pretty crucial to the way we want to operate. The human beings being what they are, and organisations being what they are, at times we're going to need to take remedial action to either remove developers or remove organisations or bring new developers in. So API management as a concept is critical to operating this playground. So we need to know who's in. Essentially we need to know the organisations that are enrolled, the developers that belong to those organisations. We don't worry too much about who's got API keys for our shared instance, because everybody gets one of those. But we do need to know if they've got a dedicated instance of one of our virtualized APIs. We need to know who that dedicated instance is assigned to, and we need to know what lifetime that instance has got. Because at the end of a given period of work, we're going to want to spin it down again, because we don't want to pay money for running kit that's no longer needed. So we need to know who's in, so we can control the resources that are allocated to our playground. So as I've just said, we need to know the toys they're playing with. Who's got what dedicated instance? How much is it costing us? And finally, we need to show them the exit at some point, even if they do throw a tantrum. So misbehaving developers who are not working within the terms of use prescribed by us, okay, they need to be ejected, for example. So API management as a kind of a topic is pretty critical to operating the playground and making sure that we've got the checks and balances in place that ensure that the developers and their organisations are behaving themselves. So, just one moment. So, CA API management is our API management technology of choice. So, Visa Europe has before Collab was created and has an existing relationship with CA API management. It goes back a few years. I know this because I was on the team that evaluated the product and helped choose our API management solution. Now, CA API management is critical because it delivers those capabilities, the topic of API management, it delivers those capabilities that we were just talking about. So, enrolling organisations and developers. So, we've got the API portal that gives us the capability to onboard new organisations and the developers that belong to them that can issue the API keys, and gives us all the data in the background that lets us see who's in, who's out, and what have you. So we also leverage the portal for creating playgroups. So we've done some modifications in the CMS inside the portal in order to call out to our provisioning system. So we use an open source technology in order to spin up our APIs behind the gateway, and we tend to develop our APIs using Python and Node.js for a couple of reasons, mainly because they're the programming languages I know. And we containerize those, run them on inside Docker containers. It makes for us for ease of use. It makes for us for ease of deployment. There's a lot of good things about using technologies like Python and Node.js with Docker. So the API portal calls out to our provisioning system when on demand from a user and triggers the execution of a given profile in our it's in our salt stack implementation that then creates a new instance of the API. And at the end of that process, the portal then grants the user the new API key that gives them access to that particular instance of the API. So conversely, the API gateway gives us the security we need at the front gate. So we've just mentioned about the API portal, creating API keys both for shared instances inside the playground and then dedicated playgroup instances. The API gateway performs the job of validating those API keys, making sure that they exist, but we've also created a mechanism whereby the API key represents a route to a back-end virtualized API. So it's fulfilling two roles there. Effectively, the API key says, yes, this guy's allowed in, and for this API key, there's the correct instance of that API. So, it's fair to say we use the gateway in its most bland form, in that we don't do an incredible amount of policy development at the moment, but we've got the assurance that we've got a really feature-rich environment that we can use further down the line if we have any more, let's use the word, difficult security requirements like implementing OAuth or OpenID Connect. We know we've got all the facilities, that it's a feature-rich environment that we can use the gateway to give us that. Going back to the portal also gives us the ability to provision the instructions for the playground. So we can publish documentation to let developers be self-sufficient, to allow them to learn about the APIs. We've got their interactive console where they can go and experiment. So we've got the facilities there to make sure that our development community are self-sufficient. The other thing that I haven't put on here is the portal also gives us a range of analytics that essentially gives us some insight into how effective our developer program is going to be. So will be, as it's early days, we're not using that information as yet, but in the future that's going to help us understand, you know, what's performing well, what's not performing well, and give us some information about, you know, the effectiveness of our playground offering. So just a little overview of the architecture. We've got the portal and gateway working together. The portal's facing off to human beings, the gateway's facing off to applications. The portal integrates with both our orchestration at the back end and the playground, and the gateway is there providing the security at the front door for our virtualized API instances. So that's about it, really. I mean, I've covered what Visa Europe Collab is about. I've covered what we're trying to do, and the reason behind this thing called the playground. I'm all that stands in the way of you and beer. So if there's any questions, please ask them. You have to come and endure the humiliation at the mic, I'm afraid.
So now I'm standing in the way of the beer. Any surprises? Anything that you've been like, wow, that was cool, I didn't think that would happen? Just in the process of the collaboration and playground.
So I'd like to give you a really good answer of saying, yeah, we've done some really cool stuff and it's been brilliant. The basic answer is, I think, in terms of what Visa's attempting to accomplish, we know where we want to go. So when we come across new ideas, they kind of fit in a framework that we kind of understand about what the important things of the themes that we're addressing are. So as yet, I've yet to be astounded, but then I'm a cynical person and it takes a lot to surprise me. So I hope for a really great surprise at some point.
So which kind of APIs are you using and how many? Are these payment APIs or APIs about customers? Or?
So the fundamental premise is that as yet Visa Europe doesn't really have an established API program. So number one on the shopping list is creating the payments API. Now that's only a dummy in its current incarnation, but it gives us a basis for future development inside Visa Europe. The fact is that there is so much stuff inside Visa Europe that is ripe for, I'll use this word, appification. It's not really a word, is it? But for turning into APIs, we have such a huge suite of services that could be exposed as APIs that I think I like to class it in one of three ways. So there's command. Command is make a payment, fundamentally make a payment. But there's other commands like do stand-in processing for me, do me a chargeback, X, Y, Z. Okay, there's all the commands that are involved in the current authorizations platform. The second thing is control, and that's consumer-facing control. So other lesser payments providers, they offer up facilities for consumers to be able to modify the behaviours of their authorizations traffic, you know, on a personal level. And those kind of facilities is what Visa Europe should be aiming to provide. And the last one is consume. So clearly, Visa Europe has a huge amount of data that it gathers during the course of transaction processing. So actually making that data available in a of course regulatory acceptable way would open another avenue for not only innovation but a different channel for Visa Europe in terms of different revenue streams that aren't strictly related to payments. I can't give you any specific examples because there are no specific examples that are in the public at the moment. But those kind of pillars is the way that I see us maturing our API capability.
So European banks right now are having to deal with Payment Service Directive 2, and I'm just wondering, since you mentioned payments and APIs and all, if you're doing anything in labs with PSD2, and if so, what?
We're not doing anything in the labs with PSD2. Naturally, inside Visa Europe, there is work going on, but I'm not privy to what's actually happening, so I can't tell you, unfortunately. Sorry. Okay, are we at beer o'clock yet? Yeah, thumbs up from here. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.